Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, we are going to be talking about the top 10 most used skills in Last Epoch. So, this video actually is a little wrong, and that is because we're going to be talking about the top 10 list on the Last Epoch Builds website. If you don't know, there's actually an aggregation of every single build that has ever been posted to YouTube or the forums that uses the Last Epoch planner link. So this does not include very specific sources. So it is not complete, and it is only from people who actually post their stuff on YouTube or the forums. It is not the actual player base. The only people that have those numbers are like EHG and stuff like that currently. But I thought it'd be interesting to talk about because it's a good excuse to talk about some of the more used skills in Last Epoch and why they're used so readily. And if you haven't already, I would heavily suggest leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel, as that is the best way of currently supporting content like this on YouTube, and it's the best way of showing me that you want more stuff like this. Now, with all that being said, let's talk about the first skill, shall we? So the first skill that we're going to be talking about is Flame Ward with a staggering 19.4% usage rate. The reason why this is used so much is because every single mage build in existence utilizes Flame Ward, because if you're playing without Flame Ward, you're essentially not playing with mage. So that just means that a fifth of the population is playing mage. Obviously, like I said, this might not be correct, as LETools is a very biased source, as it only aggregates from its own planer and not from like everyone playing the game, but it is still a good indication that if you're playing a mage build, you should probably be using Flame Ward in your build. Why is that? Well, the difference between a mage with and without Flame Ward is staggering. So essentially, it is a very high DR source for a very short a period of time, but you can have multiple charges on it, and it is just insanely effective. So using Flame Ward correctly on mage and not using Flame Ward correctly on mage is the difference between a mage build that is squishy and a mage build that is insanely tanky. Knowing when to pop Flame Ward is probably one of the most useful skills on a mage build in general. Knowing when to actually utilize your Flame Ward charges. That is because, if you're going to be taking a big hit from a boss, turns out press Flame Ward, all of a sudden you don't die. You're going to be attacked by a bunch of enemies that are going to apply poison on you. Press Flame Ward, you're not going to die. And this defensive capability has led it to becoming one of the most useful skills in the game. Actually, back in the day, it used to have significantly more uptime before. They actually nerfed it a while back, where now it has like a 14-second cooldown. And even then, with all that cooldown, it is still very useful. And of course, if you stack cooldown, you can get even lower. You can get it to like a 7-second cooldown, which is insane, considering it has a 3-second duration, which means it'll have like kind of like a decent uptime with it. Like overall, Flame Ward is just one of the best defensive skills in Last Epoch in general, and every class would use Flame Ward. That would become 100% usage rate if it was allowed to be used everywhere else. That is just how strong Flame Ward is and how dominant it is. Essentially, Flame Ward is so strong that if they had to nerf it or change it, they would have to redistribute its benefits across the rest of Mage, or buff the ever-living crap out of Mage in general to make it so that it can compete with the rest of the content in the game, because Flame Ward is just that integral to your game plan, because your defenses are subpar in comparison to other classes like Druid or whatever, right? But with Flame Ward, you surpass everyone. So yeah, but only if you use it correctly. So that's why Flame Ward is at number 1 of the usage rate on this website. All right, the next skill with a 14.5% usage rate is Volatile Reversal. So Volatile Reversal is a very controversial skill. If you're playing Sentinel, you probably should have it on your bar for the most part, and that is because it has a lot of benefits for a lot of different builds in Sentinel in general. It is of the same ilk as Flame Ward is, but in an offensive way, where it gives you a lot of increased damage taken from the opponent, which is a more damage multiplier. You can also buff up your dot build significantly, getting to like maybe 300% increased damage over time taken from enemies, right? You can get a bunch of attack and cast speed to make your character feel more fluid. You can get more movement speed. You can use it to cheat mana. You can do it to use it as a defensive tool as well. So like for instance, if a boss is about to smack you and you've been moving around, you can actually use reversal to go back in time, to go back to before you got hit by the boss, like outside of the AoE. You can use it skillfully. A lot of people actually complain about utilizing volatile reversal because they just don't know how to use it properly. When you actually use volatile reversal properly, it is one of the strongest skills in the entire game, with not only, of course, its offensive suite, but of course its utility. If you use it properly in the Monolith of Fate, you use it properly in boss fights, it actually can be utilized as an extra movement skill to get out of the way of certain boss abilities. You can use it to push through monoliths quicker without having as much downtime. There's a lot of different reasons why volatile reversal is on the top, and it's of the same reason why flame ward is if you're playing a if you are playing a sentinel, you probably have volatile reversal on your bar. So this is not a representation of volatile reversal. This is a representation of the amount of sentinels that are on the LETools planner website right now. It's just that strong. This has been confirmed that by 1.2, I believe that volatile reversal will be nerfed and changed, and its buffs will be redistributed across Sentinel, thankfully, because if they just nerfed volatile reversal, that would make Sentinel very, very bad in general. Volatile reversal is one of the key things that is keeping it competitive with the rest of the game. If it did not have volatile reversal, it would be even worse of a state than it currently is. If you don't know, Sentinel right now is definitely by far one of the worst base classes in general, mainly because of the least amount of EHP in the entire game. But thankfully, volatile reversal is there to keep it up there in usability. Of course, you won't, feel that EHP stuff till you move into later. And of course, there's all these people playing holy like the Healing Hands Paladin with like the insane 40k ward, but we're ignoring that for this discussion. We're just simply talking about volatile reversal. And woo, let me tell you, volatile reversal is insanely strong, and it deserves its spot as number 2 of the most used skill on the LETools planner site. So the next skill that we're going to be talking about with a 14% usage rate on LETools, that is going to be Sigils of Hope. Sigils of Hope is an insane skill for offensive and defensive utility. Not only does it give you block cap for free, it also gives you a massive amount of percent damage, a massive amount of flat damage. Now, the problem with Sigils of Hope is the mana tax on it is heavy. The mana in general on it is very hard to deal with. You can utilize it by just putting it on your bar and using the on kill node and using it for clear. But if you want to use it for single target, you do have to pay that hefty mana cost. But there are a lot of builds on Sentinel right now that don't care about it. Like for instance, Rive doesn't care about it. The Healing Hands meta stuff doesn't care about it. Anything that's using anything to generate mana doesn't care about it. Like Sigils of Hope is just a lot of block chance, a lot of percent damage. It used to give 200 flat armor per sigils, and that's when it was actually mandatory, and it was in the same spot that volatile reversal was back in the day, but they fixed it finally and made it more of a balanced option in general, as you do need to, invest into it a little bit, get some damage. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool skill. Obviously, a lot of people dislike it because of its nature of having to keep the buff up, but I think it's a very cool benefit for builds that don't spend mana. Now, of course, that would require builds that spend mana to be good, but well, that's a different discussion for a different day. But I think Sigils of Hope definitely deserves this spot. I think it should be a little bit lower, but I think it's actually higher because of all the people playing the Healing Hands cheese that exists right now. So that's why it's so high currently. All right, so our 4th skill on the list is going to be Shift at a massive 12.6% usage rate. That means that if we were to do randomization on this website, 1 out of 10 times we'd see Shift, and there's a reason for that. It's because Shift is very strong. It is one of the best mobility skills in the game, one of the lowest cooldown mobility skills in the game, and you can get it even lower and absolutely spam it. You can utilize it to make one big hit builds in Rogue possible with the more damage modifiers and the auto crit it gives. You can utilize it to gain haste as well with dropping a acid flask. You can use it for invulnerability. You can use it for getting buffs for your next arrow. You can utilize it to gain mana if you're low life. You can utilize it to gain life as well based on your dexterity, which a lot of rogues build around. So there's a lot of different reasons why people use shift, and also it's just a very nice movement skill. Like, if every class had shift, they'd probably use shift because it's just that good of a movement skill. Being able to get out of boss AoEs, it also helps you get through monoliths with a massive 150% increased movement speed bonus for a few seconds. Like, shift overall is probably deserving of #1 on this spot. The only reason why it's so low is because less people are playing Rogue right now, because more people are playing the Frostclaw Runemaster cheese currently. So that's why shift is probably down below here. But yeah, shift overall, great skill. Just spamming through monoliths is just mandatory on every single build in general. So being able to utilize shift to do that is great. Recently, they introduced a node inside Smoke Bomb that makes it traversal, and it's a very good traversal skill, and it's recently kind of challenged shift as the king of mobility on Rogue. Smoke Bomb is an insane traversal skill, so I think it's way more in a balanced spot where you choose between shift or Smoke Bomb now as your traversal, instead of it just being always shift, which is an interesting dichotomy in general. But thankfully, shift is still up here because it is just that strong. Being able to zoom through monoliths is just that OP. The next skill down below is going to be Warcry and a massive 11.6% usage rate. That is because Warcry is one of the best utility skills in the entire game. Not only can it give you Maelstrom stacks, which allow you to build into haste and frenzy easy, also a source of healing, it's a source of cleanse, it gives your companions extra benefits. It can give you like a massive 200% crit chance. It pulls enemies into you so that you can use your AoEs on them, and it pulls them in, and it makes your AoE like way better in general. You can utilize it to gain an absurd amount of attack speed with the Berserk stacks. You can utilize it to gain haste and frenzy itself. You can turn it into a totem to keep pulling enemies in. There's just so many different things you can use with Warcry, and also one of the best applications of Warcry is it deletes projectiles as you utilize it. And there's a lot of things currently that Oribus has in the boss fights, like Oribus's boss fights, where they are projectiles. It stops like those little seeking missile black smudges on the ground. It stops those. It stops the projectiles in his projectile phase. It stops a lot of different things in terms of projectiles, which makes Warcry probably one of the best utility skills in the entire game, and one of the only reasons why Primalists can like keep up with like Falconer and stuff like that is just because of just how strong Warcry is in general. It is literally the glue that keeps together a lot of different Primalist builds. I will tell you, I used to play the game before Warcry and after Warcry. Playing Primalist before Warcry was like awful and just barely manageable, right? But after Warcry, absolutely amazing. It is such a different experience playing a Primalist build without Warcry versus with Warcry. That's actually one of the main reasons why Spriggan form is so bad, is because of its lack of Warcry. Same thing with Swarmblade. That's why Werebear ends up being on top in general, is because of its access to Warcry. Just not having access to Warcry is such a large detriment to being a Primalist that it literally makes the other two transforms significantly worse because of this. Now, of course, there are builds you can play on those masteries, but they definitely feel the burn of not being able to use Warcry. But yeah, Warcry definitely earns its spot at number 5. It is absolutely insane as a utility skill, and it deserves its spot. The next skill on this list is going to be another rogue skill, and that's going to be Smoke Bomb. Smoke Bomb not only gives you Dust Shrouds for Glancing Blow and Dodge Chance, it gives you access to Silver Shrouds, which allow you to automatically dodge the next hit, which is insanely strong during boss fights. It also gives you access to Smoke Blades, which is a stacking buff that gives you a bunch of throwing flat and melee flat, which is good on a lot of different rogue builds. It also creates and generates shadows, which then can be utilized for other skills. So it's a really good shadow generator. It has a 10% base crit buff for bow builds, like I recently showcased. So it allows you to play with bows early on without needing an LP bow to cap your crit. It also has access to shadow daggers in its area. It can apply shadow daggers. It can also apply armor shred to cap. It can, like, there's just so many different things Smoke Bomb can do. Like, it can also cleanse. And now recently, with the recent patch, they added a node that allows it to become a traversal skill. And let me tell you, it is a hell of a ride. You can literally go across the screen so quickly with Smoke Bomb. If you've never tried Smoke Bomb traversal, you should probably try it. It has an insanely long range. It is the equivalent of having a teleport skill on Rogue. The only downside of traversal Smoke Bomb is you don't get to utilize shift, but that's not that big of a deal, to be honest. Overall, Smoke Bomb, absolutely insane utility, almost used on every single rogue ever. If you see a rogue not using it, you should probably question what it is doing, because Smoke Bomb is just that good. Holy Aura is going to take the 7th spot with a 10.2% usage rate. So Holy Aura just gives you a load of different benefits. It gives you crit chance, crit multi, gets you res capped on your elemental reses, which means you need less of that on your gear so you can focus it on more important things. It gives you block effectiveness. It gives you attack and cast speed. It gives you fire penetration. It gives you fire percent damage, healing effectiveness, health regen. It gives you almost the entire suite of everything you'd ever need as a sentinel. And not only on top of that, it also gives you access to flame burst, which is a very useful skill in a lot of different builds, as that pop is very good for clear. If you've ever seen a flame burst build in action, you will know that flame burst is insanely good for clear, as you can create a bunch of them on every single enemy and then they can shotgun each other. The clear is absolutely amazing on it, and being able to just click the button to double that fire pen, double that percent fire damage, double that attack and cast speed. And also as well, what's really cool about this skill is it's all passive. It also gives the benefits to your allies. So of course, everyone's using Holy Aura. Holy Aura is a set it and forget it skill. You put it on your bar, you set it up, and then you just ignore it, because then you can focus on your 4 other skills. That's also another reason why people like it, is because it enforces that lazy playstyle that a lot of people want and enjoy. So that's why Holy Aura is in the 7th slot. So the 8th skill on this list is going to be Teleport by Mage. Teleport is just a really good movement skill because it's an instant teleport. It can get you through monoliths very quickly, lets you blast them. Not only that, it does give a decent amount of utility. So not only does it give you a massive flat 250 armor, I know that doesn't sound like much, but in endgame as a mage build, that is a lot of your base armor currently. It can also generate a very large amount of ward if you're int stacking or HP stacking. It can also give you a very large amount of freeze rate multi as well, which allows you to benefit from like the frostbite shenanigans and stuff like that. It also as well gives you a free spell after teleport. This enables a lot of different things. It enables the loop with Meteor, which gives you mana instead of draining mana. It also can allow you to spend on very high cost skills every so often to smooth out your mana. It also has access to being able to cast Elemental Nova on teleport as well for utility. It also can create clones, which are just distractions. Eventually, hopefully, they rework those so they're more useful. But overall, teleport obviously is on this list because it just gives you all of that on top of being able to just move through monoliths very quickly. Also as well, it has insane synergy with Wrong Warp, giving you a very nice like immobile like debuff on enemies. So like you can freeze enemies for a few seconds. Also as well, get the wrong warp buff, which gives you a large amount of increased damage and cast speed. So teleport is obviously on this list. It's very, very, very strong in general. And if you're not using it, you probably have a very good reason to not be using it. Even unspecialized teleport is strong. Like even unspecialized, you just put it on your bar because you just want to get through monoliths quicker, which is great. The ninth skill on this list is going to be Smite. The reason why Smite is so high up is not because one of its individual uses, but because it has a lot of different uses that combine and aggregate towards this 8.8% usage rate. So there's a lot of different ways to play with Smite. So let's list them all off, shall we? First things off, it has a buff in it that gives you 20% attack and cast speed. Very good. You can use it as a teleport skill. Also very good. It's one of the more useful teleport skills in Sentinel. It also can be used for damage as itself because of the massive damage modifiers in it. Smite builds to this day are very strong for single target. You can use it with Hammer Throw to use it as a clear skill. You have ways of utilizing it with Electrify for the Electrify Healing Hands Paladin. You have ways in the upper right to create Lightning Bolts, which increases your clear with Smite. You also have an insane amount of healing, so you can just put it on your Javelin banner to heal yourself. You can make it cost 0 when you're out of mana, so you can use it on negative mana builds to actually still be able to teleport around, unlike all the other utility skills and like skills like that on Sentinel. So you can also get 30% mana regen on heal. You can get a large amount of health regen on heal. Everything in Smite is insane except for Fissures. Fissures are really bad. Do not play with Fissures. But just being able to utilize Smite for Crit Smite, Ignite Smite, Void Smite Hammers, Fire Smite Hammers, Lightning Smite Hammers, Devotion Hammers, Devotion Smite in general with the cast speed. You can use it for a buff. You can use it as a teleport. Smite is one of the other pieces of glue that keeps Sentinel together, and it's definitely a skill that is worthy of this top 10 list. The last skill on this list is going to be Transplant. Transplant's on this list for the same reasons why Teleport is on this list, because of the instantaneous teleportation and the large amount of utility suite it has. You can also make Transplant hit for a truckload as a damage skill as well. So you not only do you have all that utility, you can actually make it do damage, which is cool. You can make it apply Bone Curse. You can make it cast 3 Rip Bloods in an area, which is great. You can use it to sustain some mana by reducing its cooldown. You can use it for a massive 15% cull. You can use it for some bone armor, which is less damage taken. You can use it to proc your sacrifices for you so you don't have to spend mana on them. You can create minions with Transplant. Like, it goes to the moon with Transplant. And you can also, as well, you can utilize it with Wrong Warp, like Teleport, and to get all the same benefits that Wrong Warp gives you, but with Transplant. Also, as well, with Transplant, it's very good unspecialized. You do not need to specialize into Transplant to utilize it. Transplant is just a very good skill, even at its base version. You can also utilize the node in the upper left that allows you to regenerate the life that you spent to cast Transplant, because it has a life cost, and that actually reduces the amount of HP that you have, so you can actually use it to build Leech and stuff like that. There's like a lot of different use cases for Transplant, and of course it's on the 10th on this list, right? Like if you're playing an Acolyte, you're probably utilizing Transplant. It's very hard to play an Acolyte without Transplant. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the 10th skill. All right, and that's going to be the top 10 most used skills by the last Epoch build planner, of course. There are other aggregate sources. There's like Maxroll, for instance, and of course EHG has their own info behind the scenes. But I agree with most of the decisions on this list in general by how much they're used, and that is because these are just generically strong skills. They're utility skills, so they share themselves across multiple different builds. Like for instance, you see Flame Ward on every single mage. If you don't, it's probably a weird mage build, right? So stuff like that. And that's why I trust this list, even though it's coming from a biased source. I think overall, This list in general is a good indicator of what is currently the strongest utility skills in last epoch in general. Now, of course, there are other skills that are stronger in terms of DPS, but these are all the skills that have the backbone ready to support those DPS skills. So that's going to be it for me today. With all that being said, this has been Dread, off to go do something else. Bye.